Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Julio Navío. I'm the Vice President of the Spanish College and Association of Telecommunication Engineering, and I have the pleasure of being the moderator of this interesting session about unlocking the potential of Internet of People, Things and Services. Internet of Things, Internet of People, Things and Services are a key element for the successful of smart cities. Gartner foresees that 6.4 billion objects will be connected this year, more than 30% of the connected element objects of last year. And we will have more than 30 billion of connected objects in year 2020. Also, the European Commission is going to invest more than 192 million euros in analyzing all the information getting from these objects and taking good insight for the business from all this Internet of Things information. We have to say that the self-conducted car of Google generates more than 1 gigabit per second of information about the car, and that Cisco says that we will have more than 6 more connected objects per person in the coming years. Now there are more connected objects than person already in the world. So it's a key topic, very interesting from technical point of view, from sociological point of view. We will have the opportunity to listen to our expert that will cover this interesting topic from different approaches, and we will have the time for discussion after the presentation of each of the presenters. 8 minutes per presentation, and then time for you for the discussion and so on. And you can also send your question by the application of the Congress. Before starting the discussion, I just want to take 1 or 2 minutes, just a few seconds, to present what we are doing from the Spanish College and Association in this area of smart cities, because we are more than 10,000 professionals working in the ICT area, and with a clear focus in these kind of technologies that are going to be the areas of professional opportunities of the future. So we are working very hard in generating professional opportunities, building the sector, and making the ecosystem grow. In that sense, we are definitely working in building the ecosystem. We have agreement with many municipalities, supporting the Spanish Association of Municipalities and the Federation of Municipalities of Spain. Also, we are supporting the standardization initiatives that are very important in Spain, and with the high level of political support in terms of defining what are the standards to manage all these kind of things. I mean, standardization, we will see that is a key topic in the Internet of Things. We are definitely working together with the Spanish Association of Standards and the Spanish Ministry to build the technical background for the success of this kind of initiative. And also we are working with universities in the diffusion of the research and analysis and best practices in terms of smart cities. In that sense, 2 years ago, we presented in this Congress a study together with the University of Autónoma of Madrid, starting some successful cases of smart cities. Some of them are currently in Spain, but comparing it with success cases of US, Asia, and Pacific. And last year, we make a new study together with the University Complutense, starting the smart governance of the city networks. That is important. We have to work together in networks. So in that sense, it's relevant to understand the dynamics of this kind of activities. You can find these 2 reports, this kind of studies in internet, but it's quite interesting to see how building the right partnership and ecosystem in smart cities between municipalities, industry, and professional is key for reducing costs, for becoming efficient, and to having synergies that can be impact the well-being of the citizenship. That is the key focus for all of us. Okay, we can focus in technical aspects, but the final destination of all our effort is the citizenship. So I will not consume more time. I don't want to spend more time because the important thing is to listen to the experts. And now we are going to start with some experience, some case experience in the industry. So we will have a joint presentation from Ms. Isabel González from ThyssenKrupp. She will talk from the experience they have in ThyssenKrupp in innovation in elevators as a successful story from industry and Internet of Things apply to a concrete case. And also, together, we will have the presentation of Ignasi Oliver from the Metropolitan Transport of Barcelona that will also present a successful and very relevant Internet of Things case. You're welcome.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for being here in this session. And I would like to thank Ignasi for the support for presenting this. In the next few minutes, I would like to talk a little bit about which trends are we suffering today and how the smart city is challenging our elevator industry. First trend, important trend that we cannot forget about is urbanization. For the first time in history, more than half of urban population live in cities. 60% of the GDP is generated in 600 cities. Can you imagine the challenge for us? Every day, an urban space similar to the size of Manhattan is being built. This is good news for us. More buildings, more higher buildings, so it's good news for the elevator industry. But at the same time, it's presenting plenty of challenges. In order to provide an answer to these challenges, in 2014, we presented Axel. Axel is in an accelerating moving walk to foster the mobility in the last mile of transportation. Moved with linear motor technology, is able to move people at 2 kilometers per hour for distances between 500 meters, more or less, to 1.5 kilometers. 1 year later, ThyssenKrupp launched Multi, the first ropeless elevator. It's ropeless because the cabins is propelled using linear motor technology too. Because it has no ropes, we can move them not only vertically, but horizontally. And we can put several cabins in the same shaft. With this, we can reduce by 50% the footprint of the elevator in the building. But this is not the only trend that is affecting us. The other one is the digitalization. These two photographs show exactly the same place. This is St. Peter's Square. Same event, it's Papal's conclave, and less than 10 years difference. So you can see the difference. Phones are not any longer devices that we use to call someone. They are really powerful, smart devices that we use to be connected worldwide. And the trend is growing. As Julio was saying, it is forecasted that soon there will be 50 billion connected devices. This means that each one of us will have 6 devices, in average. So why are you not using this sort of technology for our elevator industry? Just to talk a little bit about what we do. We produce elevators. And just to let you know, elevator is the most used means of transport. Every day, 1 billion persons, 1 American billion, so it's 1,000 million persons using an elevator. Probably most of you used at least one elevator to arrive here today. And it's a safe system. It has no major problems, but as any complex system, some failures can occur. And what happens when something occurs? We just stop the elevator. Each year, each elevator, it doesn't matter which manufacturer it's coming from, has at least 4 callbacks. This is an average. Can you imagine that you have to take your car for servicing 4 times a year? probably you will change your car. But we are living with this. And we don't think this is reasonable, so we are not happy with this result. Today, technology allows us many things. And the problem is that many times we only know that something is happening when we get a call. Someone is calling us because he's trapped in an elevator car or because someone just realizes that it's not working properly. And we cannot accept that. So if technology today allows us to put sensors, to gather data, to deal with those data, to be able to have some patterns of failure, why don't you use them? Last year, we launched MAX. MAX is a system, it's a predictive maintenance system. It combines at the same time cloud computing, Internet of Things, and machine learning. With that, we are able to get all the feedback from the elevator and to get plenty of data with some algorithms, and we are able to put in the hands of our technician all the information for the elevator. With this information, our 24,000 technicians will be able to react proactively and probably will be able to prevent failures before they occur. But we think this is not enough. There's something missing here. We are putting plenty of things in our smartphone, and we are putting this information in the hand of our technician, but there's only one hand free for doing the maintenance. So we are going a step forward. We have an agreement with the Microsoft HoloLens. We are using HoloLens, and then we are putting all the information in the ears and in the eyes of the technician. With this, the technician is able to see the real world and then the virtual world all together, and is able to perform the job more efficiently. At the same time, we can provide remote support. So via HoloSkype, we can connect to an expert that is in a remote place, and this expert can guide him or her through the complex operations. With Max and HoloLens, we think that we are empowering not only our technicians, but our sales managers and our engineers into the digital era. Elevator industry has to move them. Our commitment is clear. It's 50% of reduction in downtime. So at the end, products like the Accelerating Moving Walk, Axel, like the ropeless elevator multi, like the predictive maintenance tool, Max and HoloLens, is the way we are providing answer to the challenges that the smart cities have today. But I think there's nothing better than an experience from someone that is working with us on this, because at the end, the needs of our clients are our challenges. So please, Oliver.
Thank you. Well, here you can see some of our installations that we have in our metro with the fugers. There are thousands of devices working together in order to provide a good service that could seem very simple to move people from one point to another, but it's not so simple. But so many machines have to work together, and also when so many people is using at the same time. We have 140 trains running in rush hour. We have unattended stations. This means that we operate stations without operation staff, and everything has to work perfect. And in case it doesn't work, we have to be able to solve the problems for our central control. You also can see we have driverless trains. A lot of things must work together in order to don't stop the trains in the middle of the tunnel. And in case it happens, it's necessary to react quick, fast, and without having any problem with our passengers. Sure that most of these installations you have seen because you are using metro service systems here or in other cities, but you can see that there are other installations that are hidden to the passengers, like pumps, ventilations, electrical substations, that also must work and must work perfect. When something has a failure, that is something that happens because there is nothing perfect and everything can fail, it's very important, the most important thing, to give a quick response from the operation point of view to mitigate the impact of the breakdown, and for the maintenance staff to give a quick response and repair is information. Information on what is happening. And sometimes it's not easy to have the information because hundreds of these machines are linked together, and sometimes it's not easy to know what is happening. So it could seem or look like a game, it's like a game board, but it's not a question of luck on dice. It's a question of Borg hard, and it's a question of using the powerful information that every day we can have more. And this is why Internet of Things can be a good opportunity for us. Moving 8,000 million of people every year is definitely not a game. In next slide, there's only few examples that we did in order to improve availability and cost, maintenance costs, just using information. These are 3 examples that we have done in the last years. The first one is about pod machines. Pod machines is the device who move the tracks to put one train in one direction or another. And of course, it's a very critical system. If it stops, it can stop the line, of course, and if a malfunction, an accident can happen. This is a point that because it's so important for the train service, you must to do a lot of maintenance. And just in the examples, we use specific devices designed to take some measurements of electrical, mechanical, and environmental parameters. Just, of course, we don't have the power to foretell the future, but often some changes happen before a failure, and we use these changes to improve the service. You can see the good reductions of failures and stop times we had. The second one is just using information we already had in our SCADA systems. We didn't put any new device. We only used some information we had. It's about track circuits, also related with the traffic constraints. We could make a good reaction of the stop time, but these systems only using the information we already had. And the third one is just something we did with also information we had from the SCADA and also information we had from subsystem in maintenance, knowing the activity and also the breakdowns information we provide. Just using an analytic information, we could have these improvements of the service. So for us, the development of Internet of Things and analytics of information is a very good opportunity to improve our service and improve the life of our citizens in our city, because a stop of service is always a disruption for the people who is using our metro. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Isabel and Ignasi. Thank you for your presentation. And now we continue with the presentation of Mr. Bart De Lathouwer. She is the Director of Interoperability Programs in the Open Geospatial Consortium. He will talk about another approach of Internet of Things from the space, talking about location, standard, and a new vision of Internet of Things. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm very impressed by the previous presentation. I took the L9 line this morning, and I started at the Zone Universidad, and it felt like it was a mile deep. So thanks, Thyssen, for installing that elevator there that didn't want to walk up or down. I walked down. So, and did you hear that? There was the size of Manhattan being built every day. Was it every day? Wow. Here on Earth?
So far.
Okay. Wow, I live in Belgium. It's not happening in Belgium for sure, I can tell you that. It took us 20 years just to think about putting a ring road around Antwerp. Anyone from Antwerp here? Belgium? You know what I'm talking about, right? All right, here we go. So I got two projects that I wanted to talk to you about. It's related to IoT. I'm going to use the word IoT and sensors as if they were equal. I know they're not, but give me that freedom. One is called Espresso, which is funded by the European Commission. The other one is funded by the OGC members. I'm not going to talk to you about Espresso itself. I'm going to put that into the context of the European Innovation Partnership. We have a booth here, somewhat in the center of the hall, where we bring cities together in projects. And so write this down, Google it afterwards, after my presentation, when you step out. It's the European Innovation Partnership on Smart Cities and Communities, and check it out what we're doing. So one of the things, and again, I'm not going to go into detail, I have limited time, but what I wanted to share with you was the development of an urban platform. And I'm going to make an analogy that, again, is not fully correct, but I think it helps. That is, what streets and infrastructure do in a city in the real world is what urban platforms will do for the digital data economy. And the urban platform will only work if it is based on standards so that you can achieve interoperability. Okay? That's important. Somehow this is implicit. We believe that there's interoperability or that standards are being used. But remember, smart city solutions, it is all very early in the market. And again, this is maybe that's something that we could debate afterwards. So here, see another slide from the urban platform. What it does, it brings cities together with the industry. Call it the demand side and the supply side. So if you are with a city, then this is something that you might want to consider joining. It's called the letter of intent. And this is the call to action for the cities. Just join us at the booth of the commission called the EIP and talk to some of these folks and sign up. It's all free. But that'll allow you to influence the requirements setting from the cities. If you're with a commercial organization or with the industry, this is something to look at as well. It's called the MOU, the Memory of Understanding, where it can influence how these solutions are being built. Again, all for free, and it gives you a good handle on what's happening. So I definitely invite you to do this. You see the third bubble that supports both of these, and that's the word standards, okay? I'm going to ask a question at the end of my presentation. The answer will be standards, okay? I will ask it. The answer is standards. So I hope for 100% success from the audience. The demand side did a survey at the beginning of last year. And I believe this is very relevant, and I wanted to share that with you here just to underline the importance of standards. And that is that cities appear to be sitting on the fence when it comes to engaging on an urban platform. They're waiting for that industry to mature. Please be aware of that. Second one is that within the city, there's a poor knowledge of the landscape. Again, a lot of education needs to be done. This is something that we all need to do. That is why we come to Barcelona, to teach and to learn from this. I preferably like the last one. I work for the Open Geospatial Consortium, which is a standards developing organization for location, as introduced by Mr. Chairman. And that is the focus of urban platforms on everything that is place related. Everything happens at a certain moment in time at a place. And that is something that deserves more attention, and I will get to that in a minute. So, we're going to run a pilot as part of the Espresso project. We're going to do that with the cities of Rotterdam, Sant Cugat, and Tartu. And here's sort of what we're trying to do. And I'm going to use a term that I freely stole from a gentleman called Victor Martinez. Victor, raise your hand. That's Victor. And he works for the city of Sant Cugat. They came up with the term CIM, City Information Modeling. If you're familiar with a BIM, Building Information, who's familiar with BIM, Building Information Modeling? Okay, a couple. definitely something that you need to look up as well. So there is this thing called city information modeling, and that's what we're trying to do here. And so if you see on this picture, top end side, we use a 3D city model as our core instrument to analyze and to visualize. If I walk around here in the Smart City Expo, I see some models, not so much. I believe this is something to definitely invest, and that we use to visualize both the sensor information, and you can read the type of sensors from the slide, but most importantly, that is the data set that sits on the lower right-hand corner. I can't make the difference between left and right, by the way. And that is the municipal databases that we would like to bring online and share that data that is out there. That's important if we want to come to that digital economy. It's all based on standards. But again, here, the other question I would like to ask at the end, the answer is 3D city model. There's only two. So the first one was standards, the second one was models, okay? The other project that we run is in the context of what I just referred to as the building information model. And I believe this is also something that is somewhat underlit in when we talk about smart cities. I live in the geospatial world where, you know, this is the map-making world, if you're more familiar with that. So when you're at in an airplane, you have an aisle, no, you have a window seat. You look outside, you see a lot of overview, but no detail. As the plane descends, you get more detail. Actually, the roads, you see it's not a multi-line, it's a clotoid, the highway entry. It's all civil engineering, and then when you go down to a building level, that is what they call the BIM world. I think that is something that we need to consider as well. And I'll give you some examples of scenarios that we run. So City of Rennes wants to update their city model from the as-built information that they get from the construction industry and update their city model that way. I think that's real exciting. We have, and this again relates to the topic of this talk here, and that is connecting sensors to that 3D model and to dynamize static city information models with that high-speed sensor information coming in. The use case here is with the borough of Greenwich, where they would like to reduce illness of elderly people in social housing based on humidity sensors in the social housing. If you're more interested, the booth of Ordnance Survey have this. And then city information modeling, Sant Cugat has a booth as well. It's opposite of the EC booth, so definitely pay a visit and talk to them about the city information modeling. Also, climate change and city flooding is happening a lot. This is a picture of Doncaster in the United Kingdom. Cities will flood more in the future, and we need to know how that is being done. Here you see some of the sponsors for this project, as well as the folks that participated on this one. So to conclude, the EIP definitely something that you would like to check out as a city, or if you're with the industry, please join us. That's the call to action. On the urban platform, so my question now is two things. First one that you need to consider in an urban platform is good, standards, real good. And you consider a 3D model. Good, you're being a great audience. So with that, I'll hand it back over to the chairman, and I hope I was able to address some of the issues that was presented as part of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bart, for your amazing presentation and entertaining one. And now we continue with Pierre Mires, that is the Vice President of Public Sector in Hewlett-Packard Enterprises. He has a very prominent international background. He was living in Asia, and from this background, he's going to make a more comprehensive presentation, including social, political aspects of Internet of Things. Thank you, Pierre.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, so the topic is really about Internet of Things, but also services and people. And I want to focus on services and people. Anybody from Singapore in the room? No? Oh, one person. So I was living in Singapore 5 years ago, and I changed from Bukit Timah to the East Coast. And while moving, I went to the police station and said, I'm moving, which is what you're supposed to do. And the police officer was very kind and registered my move. And then he handed me a paper and said, you know, that whole operation was done in a few seconds. And he said, welcome to the district. you have now been registered with those 20 different organizations, so ICA, gas, electricity, the police, of course, the tax system. 20 organizations in Singapore, in just one go, were informed that I had moved. And I thought, this is great. As a citizen, the engagement, I'm not a citizen, but I was a resident in Singapore, and the engagement that I want, but it's true in every city, is a frictionless engagement with the city. It's engaged and it's frictionless. I don't want to go back in every administration having to do the same process all over again. So something to think about here as a best practice, and we should be leveraging more the best practices among cities around the world. And three things come to mind. One is leadership. In the case of Singapore, it was Lee Kuan Yew. The other one is policies, the policies that were set in place for those different systems to be interconnected, and for me as a resident to come in and have access to that service. And the third one is technology that enabled all that system to happen. Here in Europe, the EU has produced a new e-government action plan that is inspiring at the beginning of the year, that goes along 7 different principles. And some of them you'll see, and I'm sure you'll be familiar with, will really help us move forward with our smart city projects. Digital by default is one of those principles, and Vice President Ansip from the EU Commission said that by this approach of digital by default, the EU could be saving 10 billion euros over the next few years. When you think about digital by default and look at best practices around the world, there's one great example that I encourage you to go and see on the booth of Dubai, together with Do. They produced, and Hewlett Packard Enterprise was helping in a bit in the background there, an application called Dubai Now. And have a look at that. You can download it on your phone. And out of leadership of Sheikh Mohammed in Dubai, the policy that he put in place with his administration to have over 1,000 e-services provided to citizens and residents of Dubai, and technology that puts all of that together. Now, as a visitor in Dubai or as a resident of Dubai, you cannot just take information or receive information, but also interact with the government and with the city. Digital by default. Once only principle is a second theme in the e-government action plan of the EU. The once only principle is one that says you provide information only once, and then different government agencies will share that information so that you have a frictionless engagement with government. Now there again, the EU suggests that the 5 billion euros could be saved by doing this. As a matter of fact, we were engaged as Hewlett Packard Enterprise with the Flanders government to produce the so-called Magda project that enables a resident of Flanders to provide information only once to the government, and then that information gets shared. So in a way, you surrender your information or piece of your privacy knowing that the government is going to share that with multiple agencies. But the benefit you get from it is, let's take an example, a student before in Flanders, it would take him 6 weeks to get access to a grant. Now with Magda, because the information is shared, it will take him just a few days. So you accelerate services to the citizens. At the same time, as a city, you're saving costs and you're providing increased service to the citizen. There are other principles, inclusiveness and accessibility. Accessibility is an interesting one. I think you were referring to this earlier. The EU has suggested that by 2025, 1 gigabit access would be provided for government services. That is going to help address the digital inclusion challenges that we might have here and there. Openness and transparency, cross-border by default, interoperability. One thing in interoperability, you can take the example of Singapore or in Flanders, Magda, but I encourage you to also go and check the Estonian booth, which demonstrates some amazing interoperability that they've developed in Estonia, where not just for the citizens, but for anybody around the world, you could have a digital how do they call it? A digital identity that costs 100 euros and that gives you, as a foreigner, access to all the government services in Estonia. That allows them to create attractiveness in Estonia, to create a business in the EU and provide a simplified, frictionless engagement with public administrations. So room for thoughts. One, because we have limited time, one last piece that I would want to address is trustworthiness and security. And this wasn't the theme of this conference. When you think about Internet of Things, people and services, you have to think about, is it trustworthy for me to give information? It could be medical information that I'm giving to a public administration. What is happening with that information? Is it going to go to a public cloud, or is it going to be looked into by an agency somewhere around the world? So that challenges us to think about the classification of the data. What data is actually confidential and private, and what data is public? As a city, what data for tourists, for example, might be public, and what data, like court cases, is really private, and you want to see remain on your ground. So those are complex issues that need to be tackled at a city level at the same time. But security goes beyond that, and I'd like to address particularly cybersecurity. When we talk about all those different sensors that are going to be, and we saw in the previous presentations, going to be deployed throughout the cities, are those subject to be hacked? Should we be worried? And the answer, I think, is yes. We should be scared. Because hackers are not stopping at anything. They have conferences in Las Vegas, DEF CON, you can look it up. They have YouTube channels to tell you how to attack organizations. They typically attack so far countries, organizations. Liberia, you can look it up, was attacked and its internet brought down early in November. At the end of October, Twitter and PayPal were off for a few hours. 500 emails from Yahoo were hacked, and passwords were, this is press, talking about this. And Sony Pictures just last year. So I think, well, we need to think about how to protect ourselves as citizens and cities and individuals. We have to assume that we're already compromised. Our personal information, our companies are already compromised, our network are compromised, and as a city, we have to think that potentially we're compromised. And what is the consequence of this? Of course, we need to protect ourselves, but now we need to think beyond that. What is the mitigation that we'll adopt once we have been compromised? What is our response plan? What is our backup and recovery so we can get faster on our feet? There are new tools available that look at behavior analysis and that look at whether it's on a network or a device on a network. If something strange is starting to happen, typically those cyber attacks are DDoS attacks, distributed denial of service. Millions of demands going onto a network to an individual or to a system to break it down. This is what happened on the recent attacks. There are tools that allow you to monitor and track the activity on the network and that allow you to quickly recover from those actions. So some things to think about, I think, and I'll close there, is we should be maybe sharing more of the best practices from around the world, thinking about the different elements of leadership, policy, and technology that we're able to bring all of those successes together in different places. And shouldn't we be more careful with security and think that we might be already compromised in our infrastructure and think about what are the processes we want to take to recover from potential attacks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Pierre, for involving people and services in this Internet of Things ecosystem. And now we are finishing the panel talking about the future, because our last panelist, Ms. Svetlana Grant, is the director of Future Internet of Things Networks in the GSMA Association. So we will have definitely incomes about connectivity and future of development of Internet of Things. Thank you.
Indeed. Let me tell you a little bit about what is happening with making more things connected in a secure fashion, and we'll talk a little bit more about security. But no smart city can be smart, I think, without things and people being connected. And we've come as the mobile industry quite a long way with connecting people. And I think that we have already seen in the last couple of years how much has changed since everybody has a mobile phone. Once that connectivity was there in people's hands, it was possible to do a lot more, from social media on the go, from access to mobile data, from access to information instantaneously. And I think it's fair to say that our life is changing fairly quickly as a result of that. Now, within the GSMA, we're a trade association of the mobile industry, working with about 800 mobile operators and 300 companies in the mobile ecosystem. We are playing our part in this ecosystem, and at the moment connecting primarily people, but increasingly playing a role in connecting devices and objects. And in about 4 or 5 years' time, I think about a fifth of all things in the IoT world are going to be connected via a cellular technology. And this is going to contribute, I believe, to the growth of this industry. And I'm not going to talk about numbers. What I'd like to talk a little bit more is about pilots and projects that are currently taking place to make all of these applications happen. There's a wide variety of cases, and every little thing is different. Here we are talking about self-driving cars and a sensor somewhere on a tree, and they're massively different, and we've come to the conclusion that you really need a portfolio of technologies to connect all of these. And this is what we have been doing within the Connected Living program, is looking at a range of technologies that will make this possible. Previously, mobile industry has focused very heavily on the self-driving car range of things, more throughput, more bandwidth, very quickly, and so on. And what was forgotten is that sensor network, how to optimize the networks to work with the sensors that send only a little bit of data, that require to be located for years unattended somewhere deep in the field. And, well, the answer was what Bart mentioned a few times: standards. So, the magic word. The 3GPP standards body, which standardizes everything in the cellular industry, and which makes it possible, basically, for all the networks to interoperate and interconnect with each other, and to take equipment from a variety of vendors that are all standards-based, has developed 3 technologies. The ones that I would like to focus on today are the LTE, which is built specifically for machine-type communication, for sending tiny little bits of data, and on NB-IoT, which you can see on a few stands here at the Smart City and also at the utilities industry. And they're standards-based, and the standards were developed amazingly, lightning speed fast in the last 9 years. They were put in place since last August till June of this year. Which by the mobile industry standards is incredibly quick. And the reason is that there is demand. There is pressure from a lot of customers, cities, utilities companies, service companies, and I'll talk about a few of them in a minute. They want to see this connectivity happen in order to build all of those extra services, in order to read the data, do something with the data. A couple of important things here to mention. These are the technologies built to reach much further afield than the existing 2G networks. So they're built to reach further underground and further into the field. They're built to last up to 20 years, depending on the amount of traffic you send. They are, again, optimized for very low data needs, and they're built for two-way communication. And it's an important thing to mention also in the security context, because if you have a sensor somewhere out there, all you really care is what you read from that sensor. But actually, a few years from when you deployed it and when it became known that the sensor is out there, it is very highly likely that you will need to ping that sensor and do a small security patch or fix a bug. And you do not necessarily want to send people to do it on 100 of trees, for example, somewhere in a local park. You need to be able to do it automatically. So we've had big discussions around it, came to the conclusion that we have to be able to do these remote upgrades. These technologies are going to be deployed pretty much on all European markets and all European networks, with the first commercial launches taking place from January next year. So those that have already been announced are from Vodafone here in Spain. And there are, I'll mention a little bit of the use cases that they're working on, but there are a couple of things that are very important in the context of all of this new sensor networks and connectivity. And I'm not going to go through them in order, but there's a couple that I wanted to highlight. As I'm making a... there's a couple I wanted to highlight, and the first one is secure authentication and generally security. You want to know that your device is properly your device. You want to be able to authenticate it and to make sure that it behaves in a predictable manner. So within the GSMA, there is a group that works specifically on IoT security, and it has just created a set of guidelines. And some of the things you can do are extremely simple. You know, do not preset a predictable password and leave it hard-coded in a device. I mean, some of the things are extremely plain and easy to do. It's just in many cases the innovative companies who introduce all of these services and devices into the market love the idea, don't necessarily think about designing this security in from the very start, and don't also think necessarily about the people who will be using some of the devices. Not all of them are going to be left in the field. A lot of them will come into the consumer hands, and they need to be set up so that a consumer would also treat them in a secure manner and not necessarily just use an easy password or stay with the default password and open the door for all of those hackers to deal with them. So we've got that sort of set of guidelines for the companies who deal with the Internet of Things. We're also looking at the standardization of APIs that are provided from the operators to make sure that they are part of the ecosystem, that they can contribute to the data and make the value derived from the connected devices possible. And we also are working on making the SIMs that go into those devices also remotely upgradable, and so that you could change an operator profile, for example, remotely and without needing to replace a SIM physically. So there's a lot of work we're doing to make sure that these new connected networks actually make it a lot easier and safer to be deployed. I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but at the moment we've had about 10 NB-IoT pilots already launched, and about 5 to 10 are coming online in North America for LTE-M. There's been a lot of activity just bringing these technologies to the market. What's important to mention here is that pretty much on who is who in the mobile industry are currently involved. So all of the big infrastructure providers, all of the major chipset manufacturers and module providers, a lot of them are here at the Expo, are demonstrating the modules and the chipsets for these new technologies. And just a couple of examples. Some of them, some of the use cases for this are pretty well known. Smart parking, inset smart parking sensors which allow to read the occupancy of the space remotely and notify customers who are coming to use the space that the space is free. So one of the examples, for example, is the pilot that has been deployed in Shanghai in Disney Resort. We've had a chance to go and experience, which was fun. A couple of other examples here in Spain. There's a lot of deployments around smart water meters and generally tracking the and monitoring the waterways. So it's an environmental and a utilities use case. So we are looking here at some of the announcements, for example, in Valencia, in Malaga, in Sevilla, where the local councils are now starting to deploy the technology into the field. They started with some pre-standard trials, and now they're going into the fully standards-based deployments. And there are some amazing cases out there. If you look at something like an example with the sensors in the river network, where previously the sensors cost in the range of $3,000 and are replaced in something that costs a mere fraction of that amount, it just allows a lot more frequent monitoring of the waterways. It allows not to send a man on a boat, but actually do these readings remotely every day. And the sort of things, the safety and the kind of the change in the lives of people is quite amazing that can be enabled by this. So again, the operators are very heavily involved, and I'm hoping to see a lot more projects that I can talk to you about. And I'm not going to kind of keep going over time. I'll take any questions that you might have for it, but just to leave you with the fact that you can read a lot of this information and don't just take my word for it. Take a look at the GSMA's website, and there is a lot dedicated to the smart cities there in particular. So thank you very much, and yeah.
Thank you, Svetlana. So we are closing the panel, but we have still 10 minutes for questions. I prefer fresh questions from the audience, so you have some couple of microphones here in the center, so I invite any delegate that want to formulate a question to take the opportunity. Any questions? The presentation was very clear, but I'm sure that anyway it generates some open issues. Questions? Well, just to speed up the question, I will ask you some. Particularly, we have focused very much in security. It's a hot topic we have already discussed. But I want to progress in the discussion about security, because I can imagine that the connection of the object can generate a lot of legal issues and political things. I mean, there are a lot of new questions for sociological point of view, political point of view, from legal point of view that can arise. How do you see these kind of problems? Many of them related to security and cybersecurity and so on.
Yeah, I guess none of us are lawyers or legal advice. But I'll say one thing. On security. In London, there are 450,000 CCTVs. I don't know how many there are in Barcelona. In Paris, I can tell you, there are, according to the press, 1,350. Very few CCTVs in Paris and many in London. Now, how do we monitor and track individuals that are potential risking the safety of citizens? Is it acceptable in a city to deploy more CCTVs? Then when you have these images, how do you track and analyze them? What challenges does that represent in terms of security? Could we use phones to take pictures and then to upload that to... So a lot of challenges in terms of security and privacy are being asked now. And they need to be answered. So it's security is on one side is linked to Internet of Things, and can they be compromised, and what security we have there. But it's also security, behavior of individuals and how you can track them, maybe leveraging some phones or leveraging some CCTVs, and are those potentially also susceptible to be compromised?
Thank you. Also. Yes,
I just want to make a comment. There's been quite a number of interesting discussions about what happens with the data then read from these connected devices, and there's a lot of discussions in the Commission. Obviously, the new privacy directive is coming out, and who owns that data, especially the public assets, the city assets that potentially, where potentially data is generated from all sorts of different, contractors and different private and public parties, and we are looking a lot at the privacy guidelines and who is going to be, how you permission the use of that data, how do you make people aware that, for example, their data is collected. And there's a lot of questions that I think in the city context will need to be answered. And there's a lot of work from the cities as well. I've heard Baron, the CTO of the city of Amsterdam, speak about it, and he had some radical suggestions of the public utilities who will be the owners of this data and treat it sort of as the traffic. But I think this is a really important topic to address, because just like security, if you don't address it now, I think there's a very good possibility that it will derail a lot of things and create bad publicity, which I think we don't really need, because there is so much good that will come out of this. Just as a, yeah.
Yes, please.
So I talked about the urban platform. What I've seen is that security is an afterthought in most cases, and that it actually should be there from the get-go, from the beginning when you design the urban platform. So I very much appreciated your comments. And I think the message to all of us is, start thinking about security from the beginning, and not when you run into a compromised situation. I understand I'm already compromised, so darn.
Good. Also, I have a question for Isabel, more related to the industry of Internet of Things, because now that there are also European initiatives in terms of Industry 4.0 and new ways of transforming the industry and digital transformation of the industry, and now Internet of Things has a key role, new ways of maintenance, predictive maintenance. How do you see this arrival of Industry 4.0 due to Internet of Things?
Well, I think it's very important for all types of industry. So it's not only, you saw it in my presentation, we are not talking just about Industry 4.0, it's mobility 4.0. So I think we have to change our minds and change to service providers and try to move people somehow. And Internet of Things is basic for that. So we know, we are able to know where people is, where the people needs to be moved, where from where it's moving every day. So we have to make use for that. Sure, it's a revolution for the transportation industry.
Very good. Question from the audience? Yes, there are a microphone there. Yeah.
Hold on, I'll bring it.
Oh, thank you.
So I really liked your presentation. So I'm from Sydney, Australia. We've actually just launched Hypercat in Australia. We've taken what the UK have been doing. So I'm interested, there was a lot of discussion about interoperability and standards. I'd be interested in your perspective on a standard such as Hypercat. But more broadly, what are the interoperability standards that you're leveraging in your projects around smart cities and IoT?
Ooh, that's a tough one. So I'm sort of familiar with Hypercat, but I'll zoom out. We try to identify the standards that are being used in smart cities. If I need to sum them up, I'm probably going to need 2 weeks. There's a lot of them. And so we try to put them into domains. And we took the domains from the KPIs, key performance indicators. That would be a big part of my answer is look at the domains that are being offered by key performance indicators. I'm familiar with the ones from City Keys, which used the ISO 37120, and the ones from UNECE, which sort of pigeonholes a lot of these things for us already. So think of intelligent transportation, health, wastewater, those kind of things. Once you have that, then you can sort of see some emerging standards coming up. Can I have 30 seconds just to introduce a topic here? I was at the ETSI Smart City meeting day before yesterday. Actually, it was totally parallel with this one, which is a real shame. But I was there on the first day, and Marty Burns from NIST in the United States introduced a topic, and that was called pivotable interoperability points. Which and his first slide had a bunch of squiggly lines that didn't make any sense, and then the second slide with a bunch of squiggly lines that met up at a certain point. At that certain point, you had a sort of a general agreement on the standards to achieve interoperability. I like that a lot. So ones that immediately came up was the use of IP, at the lower level. Always think in terms of the OSI stack, by the way, if you talk to someone here. I once had a conversation, I was talking at level 7, which is, the services, and then the person I was talking to was at level 3. And after 15 minutes, we confused each other so much that we had to step out. So, take that in mind as well. I don't know if I answered your question, but there's a lot of them, I think is the right answer.
Thank you. Also, through the application, there are some questions regarding security, but I think that has already covered and addressed it in the panel. So I just select one question regarding standards. Maybe Bert can help us on that, because the question is about standards like Hypercat for interoperability is in use in UK and Australia. How do you see this kind of standard and the role of that? And
so a similar question, I believe. What I would recommend, both you and actually doing it, is to bring Hypercat to bring it as an open standard, to get the consensus model and an international consensus model. That means everyone can provide input into the standard, and that there is consensus from a whole bunch of organizations that this is a good thing and that you can promote it internationally. So.
And I have a very last question, and we close then the panel, regarding the new vision of the European Commission regarding gigabit society. This is the future. It's a future that combines connectivity and Internet of Things, and also that has a big impact in the life of the citizenship, because the Commission recognize that this kind of panorama can conduct to a dehumanized society. So how is your view in this combination of elements? What is your view regarding gigabit society?
So I know we're out of time, so I'll say just two things. It's really going to help bridge that digital divide in cities touched by poverty and unemployment and access to digital services. But I would also say that this is going to help redevelop the countryside. So we're talking here a lot about the city, but we got to think about this initiative helping the countryside to get re-energized, and you can now with that start working from the countryside, maybe having less congestions in cities and more quality of life in places that are now dying because they don't have infrastructure.
Yes, any comment?
Just to add to that, I think you're absolutely right that it's reality. Most people now in the so-called developed world are connected, and I think we need to make sure that we go further and have the connectivity to make sure that the rest of the disconnected, unconnected society can join and actually benefit from all of the economic growth that I think we're going to see from the digitization, digital society.
Thank you. With this view of the future, we close the panel. Thank you, everybody, and a special thanks to the panelists. Thank you.